Welcome, everyone, to a long-anticipated deep dive. Today, we will be deep diving The Crow from 1994, which was like 3 years after I was born. J-Mac, what age were you in 1994?
10.
10?
Well,
You could have seen this.
I'd have been 9 probably when it came out because I didn't turn 10 until the end of 1994. But yeah, I'd have been about 9 or 10. So way too young to see it. I don't think I seen it until I was about 15 or something.
Sore one.
Oh,
So
yeah.
today we're, how long have we wanted to do The Crow for? It's one of those crazy cult classics that everybody remembers watching for the first time.
I know it's one of the ones where you think, oh, how long have we wanted to do this for? We could have just done it. It's our show. Just delayed it ourselves.
It's the old pecking order. Hi, Catwoman. For everybody listening at home or listening in the archives and not live, this show is live on YouTube. You obviously can watch and listen after the fact. You can hear it on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, everywhere that you get podcasts. But if you come along when we do our live shows, just like Catwoman here in the comments, you can have your say on our show, and we look forward to that. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. You can also hit the join button. If you hit the join button, you can choose a tier and you can really help this show out. But thanks for your support. If you do or don't, just having you here means a lot to us. So it was 1993 when the cast and crew began work on The Crow, which is an adaptation of the graphic novel, which I ordered, by the way, from Amazon. I should have done it a long time ago.
It'd have been nice to have been able to get through the source material so we could maybe do some comparisons, but
we
didn't think that far ahead.
Well, the thing is, you don't really need the kind of comparisons, do you? Because we're deep diving this. So it's that whole kind of thing. So we're going to kind of start off. We're going to go through this chronologically, and we will talk about obviously the tragedy that kind of haunts over this movie, and that is the untimely death of Brandon Lee. What could have been. So we're going to kick it off by kind of talking a bit about Devil's Night and what exactly Devil's Night is. So Devil's Night. It's the time in the movie which the bad guys kind of think is all right to go about and fuck shit up because what is the day before Halloween? Or as it says, Devil's Night's Halloween's not till mañana, which means Halloween is not until tomorrow. And the reason I know this is because I used to be in a stage show and we were singing a song about El Mañana, and I was like, the fuck is that? They're like, tomorrow. I'm like, oh. So it's quite cool. I felt so like, wow, look at me translating mañana whilst watching this movie.
You feel proud of yourself when you have wee moments like that. Eh? It's like you hear a Chinese person saying shisha, and I'm like, he said thank you. I know that.
Exactly. So when you first watched this, what was your interpretation of Devil's Night? To me, it kind of felt like, The Purge, that one day a year where the law just doesn't apply. And I kind of always thought that whilst growing up watching that. But then I realized, wait a minute, the law does apply. They were just shit.
I think it seems to be, it's a night where the police just, they just don't have the power to deal with all the problems. So basically they just go out and set fire to everything they possibly can, these guys. And I think it's actually, at grassroots level, it's a real estate thing. They're just trying to drive the property values down so they can buy it all up. It's hilarious, really. Be a good way of doing it.
It is quite. Graham Mollison at home says the graphic novel is vastly different. We will kind of get into a little bit about the differences and the kind of stuff that was cut from the movie. Stephen Thompson at home says the Crow. Yeah, that's a Scottish slang for the Crow, guys. That is the reason why you come to watch us live, because you get to have your say. So Devil's Night is where it all kicks off to kind of create a bit of backstory. So Eric and his Mrs. Shelley, they're writing to the landlord, I believe, kind of saying, we live in a loft and it's needing repaired. And in response, the landlord sends a gang of thugs to rape the woman and kill both of them gruesomely.
I mean, I don't know if it's standard practice for rental companies to do that sort of thing. They might have taken some creative liberties with that one.
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that call? It's this, look. Housing. We've got all this stuff going on in that. Oh, wait. So what? Broken windows, no safe and all that. So what address was that? Right, I'll send somebody around.
Aye. That sounds just like West Lothian Council to me. I can say that because I'm in a different council area.
So yeah, the movie kind of starts off with you kind of seeing like it's already happened. The death has already happened, and then
you see the aftermath.
Yeah, Stephen Thompson at home just said, "I phoned the council to come and fix my sink. They came out and flared me."
So, just to translate, that's I phoned the local authority to come and fix my sink, and they came in and battered me, essentially.
Exactly. So the movie kicks off, and you can see that Shelley is being kind of stretchered away from the property. At this point, Eric has been stabbed repeatedly and thrown at a 20-foot window? Was it 20 foot?
It's been no, it's a lot more than that. He's been stabbed, shot, and thrown out the top of a multi-story building. So he's dead. Like he's
long dead. But Shelley's not. And here's one thing I was thinking that's kind of aged. So at the point where Sarah kind of rocks up on her skateboard, she does that a lot. That's how you know she's there. You just see a wee skateboard on the ground and a foot on it. You're like, oh, well, here comes Sarah. And
it's either Sarah or Bart Simpson, but it's been Sarah every other time.
So Sarah rocks up, right? And they're wheeling out Shelley. And it's all right for this wee girl just to go up and approach the victim. I never thought that was. I thought maybe they have a bit more security going on there. She's like, so oh shit, Shelley, it's happening. She's like, oh fucked.
There was some serious issues with the whole scene, to be honest. I mean, as soon as they get into the flat, there's about 50 cops there contaminating everything. That crime scene is completely unusable now. Anything they find. No, I mean even Albrecht, Ernie Hudson, he's just picking stuff up, flicking through it. Do you know what I mean? No gloves, nothing. It's just. No, that's a clusterfuck for the beginning. Yeah, listen, we've screwed up the apartment. Might as well let this little girl see a dying woman.
Yeah, and she kind of Shelley hopes that Eric is all right, which we all know at this point he's not. He died. And Cole McNeely has said in the comments, "Nice shirt, J-Mac. Is Jibber Jabber merch coming?" Well, stay tuned. There may or may not be a store already on the horizon. So yeah,
it's a great shirt. I mean, we've also got hoodies as well. I was hoping I'd wear this and Kevin would wear the hoodie, but he forgot.
It's roasting. I've got lights and everything on me.
I'm sweating. Can you see the glistening? This isn't. I'm not a vampire. You know what I mean? This is this is just because it's boiling.
Real life sweat.
But yeah, my sister is making these for us at the minute to order. So if anybody wants one, ask us, right? There will be a store coming up soon. But yeah, that's where we're at. But thanks for the compliment. Designed by Scott Kempick and pressed on by my sister.
You got pressed on by your sister?
God damn it.
That's another movie. So at this point,
that's this movie.
Oh yeah, so it is. So it is, but we'll get to that. So very quickly, it moves 1 year on. Eric and Shelley have both been dead, and Shelley spent 30 hours on the operating table, 30 hours of pain, just to die. So it's a year on. We kind of see wee Sarah with a wee skateboard again, heading towards the wee hot dog stand where Ernie's sitting there. He's like, I don't want to put more onions on that. And Sarah comes up to the place and she's like, hi. And he's like, you eating? She's like, you buying? He's like, I'm buying. And gives her the hot dog. She's
a decent actress, that girl, by the way. It's a shame she didn't really do much else. She's only been in like 4 things. And after that, she wasn't in anything else until 2009. So I don't understand if it was to do with the situation with obviously what happened on set or what. But she was a good little actress. It was a shame she didn't do more.
Yeah, and it's quite cool. My favorite part, can add me one of my favorite parts of hers. They're like, I don't want onions though because they make you fart. It's like,
I knew you'd sit laughing at that. I'm like, yeah, I'd find that funny if I was 10 or Kevin.
There's another part that we get to, right, that had me, even in my notes, I wrote in brackets, ha 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 ha. and we'll get to it, right? And it's one of those bits that everybody else would just like they'll skiff past it. But for me, I was like, yes. But we'll get to that. So we skip 1 year later here, right? And everything's kind of happened. The years progressed, and the gang, which is Tintin, T-Bar. T-Bar's a wrestler.
T-Bar is where you go to get tea. So you've got Tintin, T-Bird, Fun Boy, and Skank. That's your four.
What a name, right? And who is it that it's actually Gideon, isn't it? He's like, and I even put it down as a quote. He says, his quote is like a bunch of pirate kind of names, isn't it? He's like, y'all jump about like jolly pirates, because all the bad guys have nicknames. There's nothing like none of them are called John or Wee Dave.
Wee Davey, there he is. He has to make his way into every show. I wish we just knew what he looked like.
Jolly pirate nicknames is what he says. You and your jolly pirate nicknames.
It's a comic book thing, though, isn't it? You know, if the source material is a comic book, you tend to find that the bad guys tend to have silly names.
Like Rusty Nail and whatnot.
Grant
Moritz says one of my favorite movies for years. Even introduced it to the missus, got her loving it. I think anybody you introduce this movie to will absolutely love it. So the four guys are now sitting in the bar and they're talking about Devil's Night, my new favorite holiday. Which, by the way, T-Bird. You remember another popular movie that T-Bird's in?
Yeah, he's actually been in a lot of really good films. David Patrick Kelly, who
Sully.
His most iconic is probably Sully from Commando. He's just such a little sleazy asshole. But he's damn good at it, and obviously had his kind of breakout in the Warriors as well. But yeah, he's a great character actor, man. He can play all types of things as well. I think he's mostly been cast as a villain most of the time. But I don't know if you've ever seen a film called K-Pax with Kevin Spacey, God rest him, where Kevin Spacey plays a character called K-Pax who tells everybody that he's an alien. And they're not quite sure if he is or not. So he's in a mental institution, and David Patrick Kelly plays one of the other guys in the mental institution who's just obsessed with bluebirds. But really, really good actor, man. I'll watch him in anything. We did actually reach out to him to come on the show tonight, but dinged. So
yeah, I think everyone that we reached out to come on about this kind of dinged us.
Yeah, we only really liked two people, but I was the first one actually replied very quickly saying no, which was nice. But hey, there you go. But so we do like a bit of David Patrick Kelly. The bad guys in general, they are quite a threatening bunch. Like, they just seem like they give no shits about anything.
Bar Skank, mate. Bar Skank. Come on.
Skank was
smokes and road beers.
Skank's clearly been somebody's cousin that they were forced to bring along, and he just kind of stuck around. And that fire it up thing is
what makes no sense. But they're all kind of just congregating in the bar, and you see Darla. This is the first kind of time you see Darla, and they've got their guns out and they're all doing the whole macho, you shoot him, I shoot him, and then it bursts into a big fire it up.
Yeah,
they're doing all the macho
after swallowing some bullets for absolutely no reason.
Yeah, that can't be healthy, right? So
imagine it just went off like 3 days later. You're just sitting watching TV and I forgot about that.
So while this is happening, Eric Draven at the same kind of timeline has returned home to find that Gabriel, his cat, still alive and awfully white. Kind of goes home, touches everything, does the whole, oh no, this is where it happened, no, and then he sees the mask of something, some sort of character that he used to play about with Shelley, because you're constantly seeing the flashbacks, and then he's like, do you know what? I'm feeling a montage. So in a montage-esque kind of thing, he pulls the jumper on and he's like, I need to paint my face, because of course I do, right? Now, before we kind of progress on, let's just take a moment to kind of look at what that iconic face paint and the whole persona of the Crow has inspired in pop culture. For instance, I'm a huge wrestling fan, and if anybody ever knows the character Sting,
even I knew that one,
right, was absolutely modeled from the Crow. Right, there's no secret. He completely was like, "That's class," and I'm using it. He added a little bit of himself to the Crow character, and that became Sting. You know, the Scorpion. But he carried a baseball bat, etc. But if you look at the character, it's almost identical. He took Brandon Lee's kind of persona from the Crow and became Sting, who became in his own right an icon, which is actually what he's called, the icon Sting. Another thing. Now I don't know about the timelines. This is where Damien would be really good, right? But I saw a lot of the Dark Knight Joker in the Crow. And I think the Crow, I think maybe Heath Ledger, and by the way, parallels again, not exactly, but Heath Ledger, and you'll see me talk a bit about Heath Ledger where it comes to kind of mentioning Brandon Lee, but the parallels, I think you can look at many different characters throughout cinematic history and see that they borrowed from the Crow. And I know that that Brandon Lee wanted to kind of step out of Bruce Lee's shadow and not be known as, you know, this, first of all, the son of Bruce Lee, and not to follow the complete. He didn't want to go straight down that Van Damme action kind of kung fu stuff. He wanted to become a real actor.
Yeah, this was his first opportunity really to do it. Everything he was getting before that was just kind of B-rated kind of action films. He did do he did actually do a film in Hong Kong very early on in his career, and I'm sure he is actually speaking, you know, Chinese in it.
He was.
So I think he probably unintentionally did ride the coattails of his dad for a little while, but then obviously he's like, I need to be my own man, and this was the film that did it for him, or would have done it for him, if he'd actually gotten through it. And just to go back to that scene where he kind of makes himself up, I'm very kind of upset to find out that's not even him, because he died before they managed to get that scene done, and it's one of the best scenes in the film, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we will kind of cover that when we get to the tragic loss of Brandon Lee. There's a lot to kind of jump into when it gets to that. The one thing I'll say though is, like Heath Ledger and Brandon Lee both died at a pivotal point in their career, because this was the making of Brandon Lee. And as much as he's Bruce Lee's son, when someone talks about Brandon Lee, you automatically think of the Crow. You don't think of Bruce Lee's son. You think Brandon Lee, or the guy from the Crow.
Exactly. So I mean, it obviously does have a very kind of long-lasting legacy, and there's a reason for it. The film is awesome. There's no. Is it the best film ever made? No, it's got its problems, but it's such good fun, man, from start to finish. It really is.
So we see now that he's become the Crow. He's put the face paint on, and this is his time to show us what he's going to do. And he heads out to find Tintin, just kind of leaving the bar. He goes, Tintin's sitting over one of the, and I've never done that. It must be is it an American thing, a New Yorker thing? I don't know, but you always see them around a barrel that's on fire. It's like a homelessness kind of thing. I can't imagine that. I don't think Tintin's homeless though. Can you not just?
No, I think he was lighting a cigarette off it. He happened to walk past it, and he was like, might as well.
And then he hears Brandon Lee laughing.
Yeah.
Again, Joker-esque.
A little bit. I always found that laugh a wee bit uncomfortable. I think it just seemed a bit too forced and weird. Maybe it was supposed to, I don't know. But that first kind of confrontation, obviously Tintin is the first guy that he picks off. And that confrontation is actually really cool. And you kind of think, oh no, is it going down the martial arts route? But it doesn't. It's just a street fight. That ends up with some pretty cool knife throwing.
There's a part which I was like, oh, they allowed this. So he's like, think back to a year ago in a loft, and he's like, man, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. He's like, think again on this, and he's like, oh yeah, Shelley. And then a direct quote: "I shanked her pink ass and she loved it."
Did he say shanked? I genuinely thought he said shagged.
He said shanked, which is worse. You know what shanking is, right?
Stabbing, isn't it?
With a knife.
Yeah.
I shanked her pink ass and she loved it. That there is a gruesome piece of detail about what happened to Shelley. Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing, right? I think, okay, that's a bit much, but we're talking about this, like Brandon Lee put it. You know, this is a dark movie and it's violent, but it has to be because that's what it is. So, of course, he shanked her pink ass, right? Because that's horrible. Think all the horrible things that you could put in a scene. That's definitely there, right?
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is that this film actually stays away from blood and guts and gore most of the time. It's not like a kind of over the top gore fest, which it could easily have been. Most of I would say that there's actually very little kind of blood in the film, apart from the stuff that you see kind of painted on walls in the shape of the crow. And you know, at the beginning, yeah, there's some blood, but it's the aftermath. It's not happening on screen at the time. I would say one of the gorier scenes was probably, you know, the bit with Fun Boy, which is funny in its own way. But yeah, so I think there's some dark themes in the film that are definitely looked into, but they had to be there. The comic book is very dark. I think James O'Barr, when he wrote it, wasn't in a very good place. So yeah, it's you want to kind of stick to the feel of the first original media.
Yeah. The with this kind of death scene, I thought it was quite artistic in the way that he's like he kind of throws the knife because Tintin doesn't miss, right? And there's even this part where Eric grabs the knife like this that's been thrown with his two hands, and I always remember replicating that as a child when I had toy swords and whatnot. I used to do this and pretend I was the crow. But it's the part where he gets the knife and he just clearly stabs it right into his face, but then it just cuts away from that scene. Yeah. And I thought, oh, and I'm a big lover in the idea of something and it being kind of use your own imagination. I quite like open to interpretation rather than just showing you all out.
Yeah, there's nothing more terrifying than your own imagination, you know.
Right.
So,
and for that, I was like, what? So, Tintin's now Tindeed, right? Tindeed.
No, that's not a t-shirt.
Mate, it totally is. Tindeed. So he's dead, and we are now introduced to the gang boss. Which, do you know what his name is, right?
Top Dollar.
What kind of name is that? He's like a devil worshipper. What made anybody go, do you know what? His name is Top Dollar. That makes no sense. He gets with his sister and eats people's eyeballs. Top Dollar, I would expect to see someone like Floyd Mayweather with a grill and going like this.
And I'd expect to see like a suit with dollar signs on it, and
right. The $1 million man, but Top Dollar to be some guy with long hair that sits in a dark room above a nightclub. Come on.
Maybe Richie Rich moved on and became a crime lord.
Top Dollar. Maybe that's not what he calls himself, and it's maybe what his street name is, because he is Top Dollar, right? He's the guy.
I don't think his name is ever actually mentioned in the film, as far as I can remember. As far as I noticed when I watched it today, I don't think his name is mentioned. It's just in the credits. So it must have been in the comic. So James O'Barr must have had a reason for calling this guy Top Dollar.
Top Dollar, man. It kind of sucks. So we get to see him, and there's a dead lassie just chilling, and his wee sister takes out his his wee sister takes out this girl's eye, to which they burn, and then he eats. I think he's quite power obsessive. He's very not a nice guy, but someone that also doesn't like to get his hands dirty. And we're kind of introduced to that. And his wee sister's like the wicked witch almost, the one that kind of gets it. You know, like a good wee sidekick. And he also has another sidekick, Tony Todd.
Yeah, I noticed Big Candyman coming in.
Grange.
With his blade haircut.
Yeah. Which I thought was quite cool. I was like, oh, there's Tony Todd. So at this point, we're moving on now to Eric now heads to Gideon's, because that's where Tintin was before he was killed. And it's kind of Tintin says, you know, go to Gideon's. That's where you're going to find more information.
This is one of my favorite scenes, by the way. I love the pawn shop scene.
It's so doom and just very. Oh, it's just so. I
find Gideon quite funny, but the thing, actually, just to go back, this was a note that I had when Tintin goes to Gideon with the stolen goods that he's trading in. There's a bit where Gideon's kind of looking through all this stuff. And he's like, it's probably fake, blah blah blah, and then he's like, "What's this?" He's like, "Leather purse." He's like, "Is this a blood stain, Tintin?" Mm-hmm. And he's like, "Shut up, man! How much you get?" And he gives him $50, right? And what I thought at that point was, it just goes to show you what a lack of respect that Tintin has got for life, where he will kill people for the sake of $50.
Mm-hmm.
That's fucked up. That's a bad man. I'm glad he got all his blades stuck in all of his major organs in alphabetical order.
Yes. The thing is, like, see the fact that Gideon knew there was blood on it. He knows that these criminals are killing people, and he's essentially buying it. Hence why the Crow kind of goes there. He goes there to find his engagement ring that he gave to Shelley, that Tintin obviously took off her body after shanking her pink ass, and he gives it to Gideon, obviously for some sort of money. And it's at one point he's like, you know, each one of these is a life. It represents a life that you helped to destroy, because he's funding it. Yeah. Which again, that's like the moral code of this undead Avenger, the Crow. Which, by the way, I don't call him the Crow, because the Crow's by his side the whole time.
Yeah, he's Eric Draven.
Yeah, he's Eric Draven. The Crow's kind of like his life source, and so he's pissed that obviously this place exists. He loads all the rings into the shotgun and pours gasoline everywhere. And as he's leaving, and the guy's like, yeah. And by the way, that actor's a great actor for that kind of character. He's the best for that, right? Proper, like he's like a more explicit Danny DeVito from Matilda, right?
Yeah, there is a DeVito-esque kind of vibe off him. But he's good. He's good. He's like an angry wee Italian guy. He's good at it.
He's definitely he's the perfect casting for that character. So when that kind of happens, he's, you know, is that gasoline I smell? Yeah, shoots into and the whole place blows up, and that kind of opens another bag of worms.
I love that image of the rings flying out the end of the shotgun when he shot it. That was cool. That was a cool little shot.
It was almost like It was almost like a homage to the people that's lives had been ruined, kind of taking back the power, destroying the place.
Yeah, I mean, one thing actually, this is I don't know if it's some kind of oversight, but this is a year down the line from when he died. Why isn't he rotten in any way? Why is he? Like,
I did think that because when he does come out of the grave, he's like he's proper in his like full skin with no maggots hanging at him. It must be I don't know, like the whole resurrection
special effects budget. That's what it is. I'm telling you. If you look at the healing effects, I don't think they do too well with the whole rotten skin scenario. But it always annoyed. Even when I was a kid, I was like, why isn't he just a wee bit moldy?
It would make sense, a burst lip or something. But he does have the scars. He does have the scars from where he was stabbed and shot. So it's like it's selective as to what heals and what doesn't. So your scars don't heal, but your whole face and anatomy does.
Yeah. Again, it's a movie. Fucking leave it alone, Jordan.
Yeah, we'll go to that. Ben Garnham at home says it's Hellboy and James McAvoy. He's saying you look like James McAvoy. I don't look like Hellboy.
No, he's saying I look like Ron Perlman. Which I do, unfortunately.
I've had the McAvoy thing a few times, but I think it's only in certain lights.
What, when the lights are off?
No, you're just jealous because you got Ron Perlman.
I did get Ron Perlman. I look like I look like the big the big white ape from Rampage.
The ape's thumb, you mean? So at this point, the shop explodes and the Crow kind of walks out badass superhero esque, and he bumps into Big Ernie, who plays, and his character's name is
Albrecht.
It's quite spelt like you would expect it to be, which is quite a tongue twister for me.
It sounds German.
Albrecht. Why call him Albrecht? I mean, come on. Ray would have been fine.
I don't know, man. I don't think there's a lot of kind of black heritage from Germany, so I don't know where the surname would have come from.
I'm assuming that is his surname and not his actual name. Imagine that was his name.
Who would look at a wee baby and go, he looks like an Albrecht.
Albrecht Stevenson.
That's worse than Keith.
Keith. Even Keith would have been fine. So he meets him in the street and he's like, they have a little bit of an exchange and Eric disappears and he's like, hey, Eric. This is the start of his, wait a minute, could that be? This prompts Albrecht to go and get the old album cover and start doodling on it to see if Sting actually is on the front.
Yeah. I mean, I think he accepts it a little too easily, though, for my liking. I think that everybody in the film seems to just accept this guy's back for the dead. It's almost like it's a common occurrence. But yeah, again, it's a movie. Just move on, Jordan. Again.
And so once he leaves there, Sarah again on the skateboard. You see the shot of her feet. She heads out onto the road, and Eric's like, "Whoa!" Pulls her off the road, stops her being killed, and she's like, "Yeah, they would have stabbed." He's like, "Be careful." Blah blah blah, and she's like, "Oh, because that's usually what you would do, right? After you just have your life saved, to be like, I wish this rain would stop, right? The weather, man, the weather, right?
Not even a thank you either.
I know. And she's just like, I wish this weather would stop, which allows him to deliver the line, which allows him
all the time.
And she's like, Eric, and he's away. And I thought, you know what? See those wee things. I'm like, love it. And I think, by the way, the song "It Can't Rain All the Time" by Jane Siberry. It's a song that comes on my iPod because I love movie soundtracks. We've even got our own Spotify playlist. You can find it on Spotify. J-Mac didn't even know this.
No, I did not.
It's Jibber Jabber Ultimate Movie Themes, and it's all in there, and that's in there.
I might listen to that at some point.
Oh, it's class, man. It's got all the best stuff on it.
But I know the song that you're talking about is it's actually a really sweet song.
It is, but I think her voice is quite nippy.
Nippy?
Aye.
Nippy.
Our voice is quite nippy, and I'm like that. It's one of those songs that the minute I hear it, I'm like, right, I'm transported right back to watching it. Waking up, like started watch it with my brother when I'm younger, and then I fall asleep, and he watches it to the end, and then the song comes on, and I'm woke up going, I missed it, but you hear the song, something comfortable about that, like. When you spend time with a sibling, and even though you fell asleep and missed a good chunk of it, it's still a very comfortable memory of knowing that you've watched something together or half watched it, Yeah.
So sometimes you'll even in life you'll hear something or you even smell something that reminds you of watching a movie with a brother or a sister. That's what these things are good for, man. It's nice to just be taken back to a simpler time, with it, like before you had all these stresses of life, like wife, kids, mortgage, wife. So it brings back good feelings.
It really does, and this is one of those ultimate movies for me. This is why, like, on my big wall of all these movies that you can't see on the screen or see when you're listening to this via Spotify, this is why you go to YouTube. On this wall, The Crow is right up there. There's a big poster of The Crow right at the very top. And I think for me, when movies mean a lot to me, it's not just because of how good the movie is, but it's because of where it was in my life. Yeah. And this is one of those that are right up there. Hence, I have the collection, even the sequels. We'll get into that another time. because this initially was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a trilogy, but Brandon went and screwed that all up.
You made it sound like his fault.
It was somebody's fault. So yeah, they meet in the street. He saves Sarah, and we move forward now to the Fun Boy and Darla scene.
Yeah.
So it kind of Darla is taking morphine and whatever else they're injecting. Fun Boy's sitting there, looking like Edge from wrestling, with long hair and his pants. And I mean, the amount of money they probably steal, they could afford somewhere nicer. I love the fact that the tone of this movie, everything's dark and dull. And believe it or not, but the director, J-Mac, actually wanted to film the full movie in what?
Black and white, motherfucker.
And then, like a proper sane person, the studio was like this. No.
No. See, there's certain scenes where you look at it and go, that feels like it was right out of Sin City and stuff like that. You know, it feels like a graphic novel when you're watching it, but it felt more like a graphic novel if it was in black and white. The color palette is pretty washed out for most of the film anyway. It's almost black and white most of the time. They might as well have just done it. They did it successfully the previous year with Schindler's List. So why not do it with this? I don't understand.
Well, I'm still happy not changing it. The way it is fine with me. It's a very dark kind of movie where if you're watching it during the day and you've got light coming in through the window, you're seeing nothing.
Actually, this reminded me of something now. Are you familiar with the Stephen King film, The Mist?
Yes, of course.
Right. Great film. I really enjoyed it, right?
Thomas Jane.
Yeah, there is a black and white version out there that apparently is very, very good. It's cool in black and white, and I spent forever trying to find one of these. Even like I was looking, I couldn't find a DVD, I couldn't find a Blu-ray, I couldn't find even a download for it. So I was quite disappointed, and then I went, wait a minute, I'll just turn the fucking color down. Which I did, and watched it in black and white. But I'm sure there was different kind of tones and lighting that was messed about with to make it a bit more effective. But yeah, I just turned the color down. That was my solution.
So this scene sees Brandon Lee, Eric Draven approach Darla and Fun Boy and start shooting away at him, and the hand gets the hole and he looks through it and he's like and then he shoots Fun Boy in the leg, to which can you recite his exact quote?
It's like, look what you done to my sheets.
And then he kind of falls to unconscious at this point. One thing I will say, we're going to kind of take this chronological deep dive here and set it aside for a second, because at this very point is a misconception that this is where Brandon Lee was shot and killed, because this is his scene with Fun Boy and Brandon Lee. This wasn't the scene that happened in. The scene was actually the flashback, because none of this was filmed in sequence. So the scene that actually killed Brandon Lee was the one that you see. Obviously, you don't see that scene. It's not in the movie. It was reshot, even though, again, another common misconception is that it was shot, and left in the movie, which it absolutely wasn't. So what happens is that scene where you see the guys opening the door, reading out the complaint, they come in, and Eric gets a knife into his chest by Tintin, and this is what initially, takes him down a little bit. Initially, Eric was to be shot, but after, obviously, the tragedy, they thought, you know what, see, with that character, we're not going to shoot him now, we'll knife him. We'll knife him instead, right? So they knifed him instead, but at that very shot, obviously the reworked shot, Brandon was to have come in with the shopping bags and be shot by Fun Boy, which actually happened. And it's at that point where he hit the ground and everybody around was like, this is a part where he gets back up, and he wasn't getting back up. But there was a bit of a delay between him where he was supposed to get back up, where they kept filming and they kept acting while he was lying on the ground. They didn't know, obviously, that he was actually hurt, because he was supposed to be on the ground for a period of time, then start to get back up. But when he couldn't actually get back up, director went up and was like, "You okay, Brandon?" And they realized, well, wait a minute, he's actually been shot. Now, before I've got a few clips here to play to kind of put to bed what actually happened. But had you heard the theories about Brandon Lee and why he and his dad were murdered?
I don't really subscribe to a lot of conspiracy theories, to be honest. I think for the one that for the one that might be right, there are a million that are fucking ridiculous. So I don't tend to give them the time of day. But
so you never heard of it?
I'm sure you're gonna tell me.
Right. So and you'll know more about Bruce Lee's death than I will, right? But according to sources, now even Kanye West went onto the Joe Rogan podcast and was like, those two were fucking aced. They were killed because Kanye West claims to have been like,
Kanye West is the most stable human being on the planet.
Yeah, I know, right? But here's the thing.
Wait, just be careful with your sources, man.
No, but this kind of came up when I was looking into it. Kanye West claims to have been around these Hollywood types that are at the top, the people you don't piss off. Now, one of the sources was, one of the theories was that Bruce Lee was kind of killed because he was taking the secrets of the martial arts to the mainstream through Hollywood, and he was also teaching people that were not of their descent, people that was kind of frowned upon, so that they actually, what Bruce Lee done was pissed off the triads, so they had him kind of killed. And what obviously they say something happened with his head, allergic reaction to paracetamol or whatever. But another thing was that they said that the reason they targeted Brandon is because they wanted to kill off the Lee bloodline, right? Because they hold that kind of grudge that they wanted to kill off the Lee bloodline. And another thing is they were like, well, wait a minute, Brandon Lee wasn't supposed to go into acting, and now he's got the potential to kind of be the next Bruce Lee, and we didn't want the first Bruce Lee, so we're going to take out the second Bruce Lee, which is obviously Brandon Bruce Lee. That again, theories. The actual, there was an actual autopsy and whatnot on Bruce Lee, and they claimed that it was something about a blood clot in the brain that was triggered by
cerebral edema. Was the official cause of death. His brain swelled up after an allergic reaction to an equagesic tablet.
That's fucking paracetamol.
Yeah, you mentioned that I know a fair bit about Bruce Lee's death. I know how he died, where he died, and who was there. And it was just an unfortunate happening. I don't subscribe to the fact that he was killed by the triads. I don't subscribe to the fact that he's still alive and working undercover in the fucking Hong Kong police. I don't believe any of that shit. If you do, you're a moron.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're talking about Brandon Lee.
Yeah, whose house was he in when he died?
An actress that he was possibly having an affair with called Betty Ting Pei. It was never proven. But yeah, that's Bruce.
Yeah, well, the reason we bring Bruce up though is because this leads into the theory. How many other actors were killed on set? People just think it's a bit fishy. For as much people as you've got saying, of course, it was just natural. You've got the naysayers that are like, nah, something went down. I mean, look at that. Two male members of the family, and there's a lot to it, but we're not going to get into that because we're here to kind of highlight the movie. But these are theories that exist, and to kind of put to bed that theory that someone had taken. I mean, I don't know what you'd heard when I grew up watching The Crow. I heard that someone replaced the bullet with an actual real bullet. So someone had come and slipped a real bullet in the fake gun, and that's how he died, because they wanted him dead. This is what I grew up thinking because I'd heard it, and only when I looked into it I realized, well, possibly not. But I do have a clip here from it's called Cursed Movies. Now, there was a lot going on in this documentary that talked about this movie being cursed, because someone from the crew had been electrocuted. I think Brandon had cut his hand. Brandon actually cut his hand. You know that scene in Gideon's store?
Yeah, when he smashed the display cabinet.
He actually cut his hand on that, and no one ever cuts their hand on that because it's fake glass. But Brandon managed to do it. He was so injury prone on the set to the point that one of the guys working with him was like, Brandon, you're going to die on the set.
Yeah, it was Gideon that said that to him.
Yeah. And there's actually a few things that kind of nod to that. Apparently, one in Bruce Lee's movie, that one of his movies kind of foresaw that. And another thing is, people close to Brandon Lee at the time said that Brandon always felt he was never going to live past 25. There was things that he was uncomfortable talking about, where he felt that he just wasn't in control of his body, that he felt that there was something destined to go wrong in his life very young. Again, that's stuff that you'd really need to look at yourself, something we kind of highlight. But what I'm going to play here is the prop gun. Now, if we get copyright stricken on YouTube, I will have to remove it, but I will put the link in the description. Also, if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, anywhere you're listening, this is why we do the show on YouTube, because we play clips and we want to kind of give as much to you guys as possible. So without further ado, here is a clip that will completely explain what happened with the prop gun that killed Brandon Lee.
There was a dummy bullet loaded 2 weeks before that had lodged a real bullet in the barrel of the gun.
These are different caliber dummy rounds that we have, and the whole goal to making dummy rounds is to make an imitation round that would lead the viewer to believe that it is a live round. So this is the dummy round, and this is the live round. Even though this is a dummy round and it's had the gunpowder removed, the primer hasn't been removed or struck. When we do a dummy round, it's always important to remove the primer cap from the center. What happened on the Crow was when they put the dummy round in, they forgot to remove the primer. And what happens is, again, that primer has enough force to dislodge the lead round and actually push it into the barrel. We're actually going to pull the trigger, and it'll have just enough force to lodge the round in there. So you can see in there our dummy round. We'll index it. 3, 2, 1. So just with that simple action, that little snap, the cap's gone off, no gunpowder, but what we'll be able to prove is the hung round inside the barrel. Inside that barrel, we have the obstruction. But if you look down the barrel, you'll notice that there's no light coming through. So that would tell me that there's an obstruction. In this case, a lead round, a hollow point. That's the one thing they didn't do. They didn't check the barrel for an obstruction. The problem with that is when you put a blank in there, then after whatever's in there, be it rock, dirt, or a hung round, that round comes out flying at 3,000 to 5,000 PSI. So when we're ready, I'll put a round in here. It's going to be a blank, a half-load blank. This is it. There's no lead projectile. It's just crimped at the end, but it's got powder. The crimp's hot, but this produces enough powder to push this lead round into that board through 2 inches of plywood. So when we're ready, 3, 2, 1. The round's gone off. I can go check down range. And we can actually see the round that punctured through it. Right here. That's your round. That was the hung round that got pushed into the barrel with just the primer cap. And what you can see is, I don't know if you can see the striations, but it actually fired the round. So this would definitely be a lethal round. This would be something you don't get up from.
I mean, that's eerie as hell, right?
I mean, how unfortunate can you be, you know, and how negligent could somebody be not to check that beforehand if they know it's something, if they knew it's something that could happen. But this is one of the movies that changed the way that people make films when it comes to safety.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Michael Bearman, the guy that was supposed to play the Skull, what do you call it?
Cowboy?
Yeah, the Skull Cowboy. He actually had kind of formed a little bit of a bond with Brandon Lee as they were working together briefly, and he was supposed to come back. They were supposed to fly him back.
I think Kevin seems to have disappeared. I wish I knew what story he was going to tell.
Sorry, I don't know.
There he is.
Yeah, Michael Berryman was supposed to. He was supposed to fly back over to finish his scenes with Brandon, but obviously, unfortunately, Brandon died, and they had to take Michael Berryman out of the show because they couldn't actually they just couldn't work it to the point where this. You see him briefly at the start of the movie. You see his legs. It sets up a shot to show that he was there when Brandon Lee Eric Draven comes back. Now, what he said was, he was like, in my personal opinion, he says, the reason Brandon died is because the studio wanted to cut costs, right? They sent home the guy that was the gun master, someone that was there to clean out that stuff, the guy that was there to check, and they replaced him with a prop master local to where they were filming. This wasn't a guy that was experienced enough to know what he was doing handling these guns, and also that guy himself was overworked. So he doesn't place blame on the prop master, but what he says is they basically overloaded a guy that didn't know what he was doing in that area with the guns, that was already overworked, right? That didn't check, and because of that, like you saw there in that clip, that's just as good as firing a bullet.
Yeah, it's pure negligence, and for the sake of saving a buck, really. I don't know. I think. I mean, I know that Linda Lee, his mum, did win an out of court settlement of $3 million for the negligence suit that she filed. To me, $3 million doesn't seem like that much for losing your son. But I mean, it was 1994, so $3 million was a lot more back then, but not that much.
Well, the budget was $23 million. I wonder if that $3 million came from what they had to pay Linda. And worldwide, it did gross 50, so it was a success. It is deemed a cult classic, but it was actually a success. So there's no really much cult about it. I just think the kind of following and the tragedy and the mystery and the mystique and the cursed kind of feel, it just adds to the movie. You know,
I wonder if it would be such a cult classic if it wasn't for that unfortunate incident. You know what I mean?
I still think it would be class, because I loved the movie before I knew that he was dead in real life.
See, I always knew. I always knew. I knew before I'd seen this film that that was the film that he died on. So I always had that overhanging for me.
Another thing that Michael Bearman had said was that people went on, because there's an actual, that clip that I played there was from Cursed Movies. There's a series on Shudder.
Yeah, credit to Cursed Movies.
Yeah. Thanks for letting us use your clip. It's better to ask for forgiveness than permission.
It's easier. It's definitely easier.
I mean, it might not be there. You might have had to click on the link, because if it gets copyright striked, I just remove it.
Do you think I asked permission to buy this fucking thing? I just asked for forgiveness.
So Michael Bearman said that as much as people look at that movie as a cursed movie, he says it wasn't. It was made out of love. The love that Brandon had for bringing that character to life, and the love that everybody had for each other. The actual crew and cast decided they weren't actually going to go ahead with the film, but then they were like, you know, we got it like 95%, and we'd be discrediting all the work that Brandon put into making this movie just to have his life be taken and not put this movie out, to not let the world see just how incredible he was in it.
The good thing is that it was done with absolute respect and taste. They might have had to change a few elements, but they kept the essence of it the same. Unlike what they did with his dad's last film, which they just absolutely obliterated. That was the Game of Death. The movie, I mean, the Game of Death movie didn't come out until 1978, 5 years after he died, and it was an absolute shit bomb of a film. It's actually a disgrace. So they did it right with this one. They did actually start filming a double wearing a mask. Brandon Lee. That's I can understand why they felt a bit uneasy about it and decided to go digital. Digital was brave back then. They actually, if you look at it now, they did a damn good job given what they had kind of technology-wise at the time to replace his face in certain scenes.
I remember the director, again, if anybody hasn't seen it, make sure to go and watch Cursed Films, The Crow on Shudder. The director actually said when they all got back on set and they watched Brandon's double walk in with a mask of Brandon's face, they were like, this just doesn't feel right. It's somber. There's just such a
morbid,
an uneasy feeling, and they just wanted to kind of they wanted to take it out, and but they knew they had to go on, and for that reason they did. But Michael Bearman lost his role in this movie, but there is a deleted scene of him playing the Skull Cowboy, and I'm going to play that now for everyone to kind of see. Audio is not perfect because we're talking
finished.
And it's VHS transfer, so you can kind of hear the a little bit of their dialogue. But Michael Bearman, for everyone that doesn't know who Michael Bearman is, he's a guy that plays a lot of different grotesque kind of characters. He's a guy that was born with a dodgy face, and he's actually the guy that you see on the original cover art for Hills of Eyes. But here he is as the Skull Cowboy.
Quit screwing around. Your job is done. The problems of the living are not your concern.
It's not that easy. Get out of my way.
You risked everything. I took that risk and lost.
That's your story.
And you'll go as a mortal alone.
I'm already alone.
Then choose. Choose and be damned.
The guy has kind of moved away. So yeah, that's literally the scene that was cut, and the only scene that they filmed, which is quite. I mean, it didn't look great. It didn't sound great. The guy actually sounded like he had something in his mouth.
No, I actually like that, to be honest. I think that having that element in the film it would accent the more supernatural side of things, which it seems to be missing, because there's never any kind of explanation as to why the crow can bring people back to life. And I think a character like that would have actually given it some more scope.
Yeah, because he himself was brought back by the crow, as you can hear. You wasted yours. And I think the character, like Eric Draven, has the choice to go back to being dead or to stay. And that's why the Skull Cowboy's faces are rotten. It's because he's dead, but he stayed. And he's like, I wasted my time. What you gonna do? Yeah. Right? I'm gonna read the graphic novel and see kind of what happens there, because that's what made me go, I'm going to buy the graphic novel, because that character's prominent in it apparently. And it's a shame that we didn't get that character, obviously due to Brandon Lee dying, which of course at the time was shocking. It was one of those things that had everybody talking, and I didn't mean to rhyme.
I mean, imagine it wasn't Brandon Lee that was in this film, he'd probably still be alive. And I guarantee whoever played Eric Draven would probably still be alive. It's amazing how one little thing could, every little difference changes everything. Butterfly effect. So I mean, other people that were kind of considered for the role, I think James O'Barr himself wanted Johnny Depp for obvious reasons, because he'd done Edward Scissorhands. Also, I think River Phoenix turned it down. So did Christian Slater. Christian Slater, I think, could have done a fucking good job in this film.
Did you know initially this was pitched to James O'Barr, this movie, with Michael Jackson in mind, and they wanted to make it a musical. And James O'Barr laughed and was like, "You what?" It's one of those things.
Just shows you how out of touch these executives can actually be. They think, "Oh, this is a good idea." Oh, this guy's got this guy looks weird and he's got a white face. Who could we use? Michael Jackson.
So he this obviously it went the way it went, and unfortunately Brandon Lee died. But if you look at his last interview that he's talking about the movie, and he's like, we take life for granted, etc. Go watch that last interview. It's very chilling to watch the words he said.
They also end that interview with that song "Can't Rain All the Time." If you play that song, what they do is they play that song, then they kind of bring in an image of Brandon Lee just smiling, like having a happy moment, and it's the saddest fucking thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So whenever you see somebody, whenever you see like footage of somebody that's passed on at a happy moment, it makes it all the more sad that they're gone.
Yeah, you know, I kind of, I don't know about you, but watching it, it was quite an emotional watch for me because I was like, for so many reasons, being what it was, the fact that he was 28, mate. That's younger than what we are now. Because when you're growing up, you think, oh, Brandon Lee, the man that died, but he was still a kid.
Yeah,
really, he was cut down before.
Bruce Lee died when he was 4 years younger than I am now.
That's insane, isn't it?
It fucks with my mind. So
it's crazy.
I've achieved a lot more than he did in my time.
An award-winning podcast that's never won any awards.
Mate, I gave it an award.
But you know, it is, when you look at it for what it is, that, you know, he was rushed to hospital. His mother, he was getting married after that movie to Lisa. He was Eliza.
Yeah.
He was going to get married. He was this big, larger than life character. I think his legacy was going to be his own. I don't think, based on the trajectory, I think we view him, if he hadn't died, we'd view him in the same vein as like Brad Pitt, Johnny Depp. He'd be among those actors now because he'd have done so much more. I think The Crow was just the beginning of
this was his launch pad. Do you know what I mean? This was he'd only done 5 major films, including that one, and the other 4, 3 of them are pretty poor. One of them's not bad. Rapid Fire wasn't a bad movie, but yeah, I think this would have been the launch pad for the career that he would have had. But again, same thing happened to Bruce. Again, Enter the Dragon came out after he died, and that was the film that gave him international recognition. That was the first one to come out over on this side of the planet. Once they seen the success of Enter the Dragon, that's when they brought out The Big Boss, Fist of Fury, and Way of the Dragon. But he was gone. He was gone. He never got to see the success that he'd become, which is a shame. And it's the same for Brandon.
And when you hear Brandon talking about, you know, what he had hoped to achieve with his father, and the fact that he never got that chance because he was 10 or 8 or 10.
Yeah, I think he was 7 or 8 at the time
when his dad passed. So he kind of wanted to carve it. It's all very sad. And I do have another clip here to play, and it's the news report of Brandon Lee's death.
I'm Lisa Gibbons. John Tesh is away this week. Tragedy, it seems, runs in the family. Bruce Lee was a movie star who died young and became a legend. Now his son Brandon is gone as well, fatally wounded while starring in a movie.
5 hours of surgery at this hospital could not save the life of 28-year-old Brandon Lee. He was fatally injured on the set of his latest movie, The Crow. Sarah Seidman, a stand-in, was there when it happened.
When Brandon didn't get up, everyone was stunned because in the scene he was supposed to fall down and be mortally wounded. So, I mean, the actors went on with the scene. They didn't know until the director said, cut. Nobody knew. And then when the medic looked at Brandon and he was right in there, he said, Brandon, you're all right? He wasn't. He was really pale.
Initial reports indicated that Lee was shot in the stomach by a prop gun. But today, an autopsy revealed that Brandon Lee was killed when he was hit by a .44 caliber bullet. Jason Scott is a spokesperson for the production company.
Sad, sad, sad.
Yeah, this is a happy podcast.
This is why we kind of broached on this in the middle of the show, so that we would kind of take the dip and come back from it. So as you see there, we've explained, well, we haven't, Shudder, the documentary on Shudder explained the way the bullet kind of came out and just basically what happened to Brandon Lee. And unfortunately, that was his final movie, but it was also the movie that catapulted him into, you know, what he became, a legend. When you think of Brandon Lee, you think of The Crow, and this is kind of why, for good reasons and bad. But there it is in a nutshell, the death of Brandon Lee. We're going to now move back on with the rest of the show. The reason I wanted to kind of touch upon it right there was just to kind of clear up where he died in the movie and how he died. And we hope we've done that with all the source material there. So, Funboy has now... You all right there, J-Mac?
Yeah,
sorry. Banging.
Off you bangy.
Oh, by the way, did you see in that clip? It's like, well, Bruce Lee died and, well, Brandon Lee died as well. It's like, what?
Tragedy runs in the family. Why did they have to say it like that? Like, it's like, yeah, remember how this guy died? That's his boy away too.
That's his boy away too. Your dad's dead. We still game reference there.
Yeah.
So Funboy has been shot. He kind of gets slapped about a bit, and then J-Mac, explain to our fine audience what happens to Funboy.
Funboy gets dragged into the bathroom and basically injected with every needle in the building to give him a fatal overdose. While at the same time, he grabbed Darla, who happens to be young Sarah's mum, and somehow uses his magical get morphine out the vein powers to get her. Don't know where that came from. I don't know if that would be like on my top list of superpowers if I get to come back for the dead. It's just like, right, so I want to be able to fly, I want to be able to be invincible, and I want to be able to force morphine out of people's veins. So that's a bit of a weird request, mate. We've never really had that before. Could you maybe explain your reasons? No.
You see, also, does he not put the needles in the shape of the crow on his chest, on Funboy's chest?
I think he made it. Is that what he did?
Mm-hmm.
See, I remember seeing the needles, but I thought the crow was just drawn in blood around where the needles were.
Yeah, I think because the needles were marked like a crow, and then he took the blood and just kind of drew around it like an outline.
Right.
And another thing, with that scene is what was I going to say about it? He takes him into the bathroom and does that to him. Oh no, I had something to say, but I forgot it.
Damn it, man.
That was it. This was it. The way that the crow kills, or the way that Eric kills everybody, is always kind of in relation to who they are and what they do. Like Tintin got stabbed up, right?
Yeah.
You've got, and we'll not go into the other deaths because we've not covered them yet. But then he kills Funboy with junkie needles because he's a junkie.
With junkie needles. I think what he's trying to say is he kills him with drugs. Kills him with junkie needles.
Well, they does. They're junkie needles.
They're just needles, man.
Not those ones. Not those ones.
They're just needles. It's just the contents that's the problem.
Right? And the context.
So what's in the needles? Oh, they're full of junkie.
No, but you can get a needle that has I don't know, water in it, and you can get a needle that's got all the junk in it.
A needle with water in it would do just as much damage, to be honest.
Soak somebody wet.
No, if you inject somebody with water, they're dying, man. It's no good thing. A syringe with air in it will kill somebody. So yeah, it's just best not to inject things unless you really, really have to. Get the fucking vaccine. That's my message. Kevin's is different.
This podcast took a turn. Fuck.
So as always.
So he injects him with all that horrible stuff because usually stuff that comes from a needle is horrible, and it kills Funboy. So we're down two of the henchmen. And by the way, I like that there's not too many baddies as well, and you know who he's going for. You know, it's already set up to the point where, like, right, we're following now. He's going to get one of the, and I always, it's mad that he left Skank for last. Skank. So Eric reminds Darla as well.
It's Skank right there.
Eric reminds Darla that she has a child and that she needs to kind of get her act together because she's got a daughter that needs her. And this is something that Eric and Shelley always knew.
Yeah.
And this is the point where he kind of tells her as he's removing all the morphine from her blood.
I like the quote that he says there when he's mother is the name for God and the lips and hearts of all children. That's cool.
So cool true. Line. I wrote that down as well because it's a beautiful line. This movie is filled with so many great quotes. So it's going to get hard when we come to the most memorable quote. It'll be really hard to kind of pick from that. So Gideon is now in, the bar. He's like, fill it up! And he's like, you have an appointment. He's like, oh, he starts giving Tony Todd some snash, and then he ends up above the club with Top Dollar and his wee missus. And he's the only one you kind of do see in the movie that kind of gives Top Dollar a load of cheek And he's like, well, your sisters? He's like, why? Can't you see the resemblance? He's like, no. He's like, no, and I kind of see that you two kind of get into each other. So what's going on there?
Yeah. So thanks for introducing me to your sister wife.
Exactly. This kind of explains it. Top dollar. Right. So he's kind of saying, what happened down at your shop? Why did it blow up? Oh, you're telling me the Crow Man. You better not be lying to me. He's like, I'm not lying. Why'd I lie to you? And then he gets a sword and puts it to him, and he's like, you sure you're telling us the truth, man, eh? He's like, I'm telling the truth. Now get that thing away. He's like, all right, kill. Stab! And what I like about this death is the fact that he stabs him in the throat, right? And he's like, 2 seconds into Gideon, like, choking, he's like, oh, just die. And shoots him as well.
Yeah.
Like, that's how much he loathes that character.
Yeah.
That he's like, just go and stop wasting my time. I know I stabbed you.
For fuck's sake, die, will you?
3.3 seconds ago, I stabbed you, and you're not dead yet. like, just get this piece of shit.
I don't know. It seemed like that. I mean, obviously, it wasn't a mercy killing, but it almost seemed like one. Do you know what I mean? He could have just let him bleed out there, but he shot him. And like that's what I'm saying. I know it wasn't a mercy killing. He didn't do it to make it easier for him. I think he did it because he just wanted to shoot him as well.
He wanted to get him to fuck. He was like, I'm sick of this guy breathing.
Aye. It's like, his choking's annoying me.
3 seconds ago, I just stabbed him. Now he's dead. So Gideon gets it, and then Eric then visits Albrecht in his house, and he's like, you need to tell me what happened. Which, by the way, I thought, has he not already found, like, he remembered? We already seen this.
He didn't know what happened after. Like, he didn't know what happened to Shelley. He didn't know if she died straight away or whatever. He had no idea because he died first.
So using more of his ultra superpowers, he puts his hand on the head of Bearman.
So how did he even know that was going to happen? Oh, because he was touching stuff earlier on. Yeah, that's fine.
Aye. So he touches his head and gives it all. Oh! Oh! And
how funny would it be if all he seen was like episodes of the Cosby Show or something? No, like just TV shows. Just TV shows and just memories.
The Cosby Show.
I don't know. It's the first thing that came to my mind. I used to like the Cosby Show.
Why is that the first thing that came to your mind?
Shut up. But it's like, how did he know that it would be those memories that came out? You know? I always find it funny with these kind of mind reading scenarios. It's like they always seem to just manage to find the information that they need, as opposed to just having to go through episodes of the news.
You see Ernie sitting on the bog reading the fucking toilet, reading the newspaper. He's like, fast forward.
Just flicking through the files. But aye. So that was another superpower.
So he takes the memories and he's like, you stuck wearing all this. Why didn't you help? He's like, I tried to, but the shit is done. Done the Wayne's against us and everything. So so Eric realizes that Ernie tried and couldn't really do anything. He got kind of demoted for trying to sort that stuff out, and then he's like, right, cool, well, I'm just going to go and get T-Bird now. So T-Bird says to Skank, they're now moved forward and they're walking through the streets and they're like, they've killed Tintin and they've killed Funboy. And then they just stop the street and they're like, they look like a couple of Jake balls, man. What was the need in that? Right?
I don't know. What's funny as well, though, is you can tell that David Patrick Kelly was supposed to do it one more time. But he walked away and Skank kind of after it. He's like, oh.
And then he goes,
yeah, we'll leave that in.
He goes, smoke and root beers. He's like, got it.
That's road beers. Road beers,
sorry. Road beers are their thing. We need beers for the road. Like, that's a thing, right?
That's what it is. Basically, it's like, we should get beers for drinking in the car when we're driving, because that's just the done thing with criminal gangs. And just movies in general. The amount of drink driving that goes on in films and it's just never addressed is fucking hilarious. There'll be a couple goes out for a date and then he has like 8 beers and then he's like, oh, come on, I'll take you home. And then do they crash or get stopped by the cops on the way home? No, he just drops her off. That's it. Job's a good one.
So he's getting in the car at this point now, and then he's getting gaffer taped up by the Crow. He's like, hey, do I know you? Is it money you need? Drugs? I've got it all. And then we get a shot of Skank in the shop. And what's he eating? He's like, who eats like that?
That's just happy horse shit.
He's grabbing the beers.
Who eats like that? A guy called Skank eats like that.
He's like, that's... And I'm just like, what?
He eats like a dog. He just like shoves things into his face.
Mate, he just needs put down for his own good. What I find really funny is at this point, you know, T-Bone.
T-Bird.
T-Bone.
T-Bone.
T-Bone. I'll call him T-Trolley next.
Jesus Christ, man. So, anyway, what happens to T-Rex is...
So T-Bird, he's in the car, he gets gaffer taped, and they're going for a drive. Faster, he's got gun to his head, has to keep moving. And then, at this point, Skank runs it. He's like, oh! And then he gets ran out. He's like, oh!
That's so funny. The guy gets out of the car and he's like, so what the hell are you doing, you stupid ass hair? You hit my car. Zero concern. And then Skank just knocks him out and steals the car. But what's funny about that is when he speeds by the cops and the cops like, what the crap?
No, please. This is, remember how earlier at the start of the show I said there's a really funny bit that had me howling?
Is that it?
The cop goes, what the crap? And he goes, and the other cop's coffee goes on, and he goes, ah! Unnecessary. He could have said, go chuck your coffee. No concern for his pal. Just trying to take a drink. And it went on, and he's like, ah!
I mean, I didn't find that funny. I'm just laughing at how funny you found it.
Mate, I was howling. Where's my note right here? But I actually had to hear in the notes, and in brackets I had, ha ha ha, I've got that many notes. Where is it? Skank, T-Bird. No, it's somewhere. Is it even in the... I can't mind. It's somewhere. I'll come across it because there's lots of notes. But I was like, ha ha ha. I wrote it down, actually. I wrote it down. It's just... That, for me, had me howling. Right? Just the guy trying to take a drink of his coffee. The guy's like, what the crap? Goes. It's just like fucking
Do you know, this scene is probably the only scene in the film where you get to see somebody's real kind of concern for the fact that somebody's come back for the dead. And it's T-Bird. He's like, we killed you. We put you through the window. There ain't no coming back. There ain't no coming back. He goes full Predator at that point. Mate, there ain't no coming back. There ain't no coming back. We're going to have some fun.
See, at that point, the music that complements that scene brings emotion.
Aye.
As viewer, right? Because not only does it just say, you know, there ain't no coming back, but it drives home. Well, wait a minute. I know I'm scared because I know what we done to you. Yeah. And that's why he's scared, because he's like, I know what we done to you. And that's why I'm scared, because there ain't no coming back, but you're back. and now I know why I wish you couldn't come back, because and the music was perfect for that scene. There's like an eerie kind of song that plays at this point, which kind of drives home like we're getting serious now. You know, there ain't no coming back. Well, no, but no until now, pal. You know.
Yeah.
And for me, that was quite
he dies in a way that kind of suited his actions.
Obviously, the arsonist.
Yeah. So he blew him up in his car. Now his car is his favorite thing. Mm-hmm. That car is a T-Bird. That's what so that's the reason he gets called T-Bird, is because that's his car and that's his baby. Mm-hmm. So by blowing up the car as well, it's just like a double fuck you to T-Bird.
Yeah. And thingy Todd at home says The Crow was an excellent biopic of Sting. Yep, this is literally Sting's backstory. This was Sting's backstory, and this is kind of added to the character when he kind of came into WCW. But T-Bird's death was quite cool. I like the way it actually exploded before it hit the water. So it was like, you know, we're getting you out of the way. We're not doing this in the street, but we get to see it explode just before you hit the water. Yeah. Rather than going into the water and drowning. It's like a double fuck you. Have you seen Sully in anything that he didn't get killed in?
He didn't die in K-Pax.
He's always getting thrown off stuff though, right? We need to use that scream in some sort of production at some point.
Apparently he actually shouts "ooh la la."
Yeah, I heard that. So at this point, now that the whole car blows up and Skank's like, Demon! You see, this is that iconic. This is this iconic scene where Eric lights the gasoline and it turns into a huge crow. This is like, right, we know he's serious now. We know why he's here. He's out for blood. And it's pretty cool that even when he goes to get Skank and he shows up at Top Dollar, because at this point there's not much left now in the movie before it starts to get real serious. Eric kind of goes to
because it wasn't serious until this point.
No, get serious as in the way of they know the threat's coming.
Yeah.
They know that the crow, because that's why he left Gideon alive. Told them to go and let them all know death's coming. He wants them to fear him. And Eric, for the last time, goes back to the loft, and that's where he is at. And Sarah kind of shows up and is like, Eric, you there, dude? And nothing happens. And she's like, well, screw you. I thought you cared. And he's like, Sarah, I do care. And then she runs up and she's like, oh, the big loving hug. And he gives her Shelley's ring after. No, that's towards the end, actually. He gives her Shelley's ring to kind of say, I will always be here. But it's at this point, I think he knows that he's on borrowed time.
That was one of the scenes that was done with a double. So Brandon Lee was never in that scene in the loft, which makes it all the more sad as well, because it was almost like that was. It's a moment that he should have been there for. Was that hug, that embrace?
Yeah.
Well,
it was quite nice. It was quite a nice wee scene. It's one of those scenes that chops up a little bit and shows you the purity of the character. So at this point now we've got Top Dollar who's assembling a mob style thing, and this is where we'll go back to Heath Ledger, right? At this point, he's like, Devil's Night, all the patter about what Devil's Night is, how he's some sort of anarchist that's created Devil's Night, and now people have taken it and run with it, and he wants to burn buildings.
You know what they got now? Devil's Night greeting cards.
Right. So at this point, everybody's locked and loaded with guns. Skank's sitting there. I don't know why they kind of brought Skank in on that, because Skank's no good to anything. Then the crow walks in, which kind of mirrors that scene in Dark Knight where Heath Ledger walks in, with the bombs and that all strapped.
Yeah.
I thought, wow, if Heath Ledger took from that, then well done, because what a great thing to take. So he walks in as the crow.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously Christopher Nolan would have, as the director, he'd have been in on that. But you can definitely see the comparison there. I also like the way that it shows you Eric sitting up in the rafters like Batman. Did you notice that?
Like Sting.
Well, for me, it was like Batman.
Sting obviously took. So he comes in, gives it all the patter. He's like, I'm here to hurt none of you, just want him. Which again, is the revenge. This was obviously modelled after The Raven, which is a poem by Edgar Allan Poe. Did you know that?
Mm-hmm.
The Simpsons done a class.
It's a book.
Mm-hmm. The Raven.
Yeah.
It's started off. I don't know if it's a book. I know it's a poem.
No, it's definitely a.
I mean, they may have elaborated on the poem a bit and made it into a book, but it definitely is a poem. And it definitely started off as a poem, read by Christopher Lee, which is beautiful if you go to YouTube and listen to it. And it's like 4 minutes long. But and that was about a raven that could, bring back, it's all about revenge. But he walks in. That would have been better. He walks in. He's like, here, I just came for him. Give me him. And they're like, no. And then they all shoot him. And they're like, ha, 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 ha. And then before you know it, like, snakes on a train. Everybody's being pulled under the table. And it's almost like that ninja assassin. They're all getting done in left, right, and center. And one thing I thought would have been cooler is if Eric Draven didn't use guns. I quite like the up close and personal kind of stabby. but I get that he had to use guns because it would have been there for some time if he was using martial arts and stuff.
Yeah.
So he shot a lot of them, kind of wears them all down, and he gets Skank, and Skank goes out the window for a fly. Again, what happened to Eric? He got thrown from a window that kind of mirrors his own kind of style. Skank went out the window. Goodbye, Skank, right into a police car.
And both of them fell out of really bad special effects.
Nothing wrong with that.
So some pretty awful green screen being used there, but hey ho, it's all they had. It's all they had. See, that's the thing though. They did a terrible job with green screen, but they did a good job with digitizing his face. So
yeah,
maybe that's where they spent all the money.
So at this point, the Micah, who is his sister, who is Top Dollar's sister, Micah and Top Dollar, right? So they escape. The mob's been done in, and wee Sarah is. It's like now it's the 1 year anniversary now, and Eric goes to see Shelley's grave where he finds Sarah sleeping. You shouldn't sleep in here overnight. He's like, why? It's the safest place in the world to be, because no one else wants to be in there. They have their final goodbye. He gives her the ring with the necklace, and as soon as she leaves the graveyard, because obviously Top Dollar knew that it was the year anniversary of Eric Draven's death, knew exactly where they were buried, because obviously he remembered everything about them, right? Didn't have to have his mind refreshed at all at any point.
No, I think he's got a lot of people working for him that would get him the information. But I actually loved that detail. I loved the fact that as soon as he killed Skank, he was like, right, time for me to go back in the grave. If it wasn't for the fact that Top Dollar came and took Sarah, that would have been the end of it.
Even though Top Dollar did order for him to be killed.
Yeah, but he wasn't the one that did it. Eric was only out to get the people that killed Shelley and him. Yeah. So as soon as he did it, as soon as Skank was gone, he was like, right, that's it. Mission's over. There's Shelley's ring for you, Sarah. She'd want you to have that. And then that would have been the end of it. Top Dollar would have been alive today if he had just left Sarah alone.
So he takes Sarah, runs into this crazy ass building, and at this point, they realize that the crow is the link between worlds. The reason that we have an undead Avenger is because the crow has the power to do so. Because Micah knows this stuff, right? Because she eats eyeballs and probably is a witch, right?
Yeah. Again, she makes her demise in a rather fitting way.
So she shoots the it's actually Tony Todd that shoots the bird with a sniper.
Yeah.
Doesn't die. Bird doesn't die. Flies into a windscreen, gone. Shot with a sniper, no quite.
You ever seen a bird getting hit by a windscreen?
Yes, gone.
It's actually quite comic, to be honest. It's like a cartoon. You just see a wee puff of feathers. There's no bird left. There's just wee feathers everywhere.
Unfortunately, aye. So
you're just everything I say tonight, you're going, ooh.
No, not at all. Bird's life matter. He's shot the bird, which weakens Brandon because the bird's not dead, so Brandon won't die. Eric won't die. Pure choice of words there, right?
Yeah.
So Eric won't die, and what happens is they start to fight. She goes to kill the bird. The bird's like, "Oh, bitch, no, you're no." Scratches her eyes out and probably does some other stuff. Pecks like hell. Her eyes start to kind of bleed. She falls, which is again quite cool because she's been all about the eyes, yet the bird gets hurt. Smart how they're doing that. Eh? She falls to her death. she falls, and then she's pan-breed, and then it's now just between the old Top Dollar.
She's 10 deed.
She's 10 deed. So they take a Top Dollar.
Every time you say it, it's like your arsehole puckers up a wee bit.
Right. So he takes her to the roof, tries to throw her off last action hero style. She's still holding on to the tiles. They have a little bit of a fight. It looks that Eric's going to lose because he gets a sword straight through the gut. Doesn't he die? And then he's kind of standing there, and then Top Dollar's like, you were kind of going against my build and stuff, and I kind of like to be top dog around here. Nothing happens without me, so again, no hard feelings. And then he's like, Take the pain. I don't want it anymore. Holds his face. Top Dollar's like, oh no. You're seeing flashbacks of Shelley getting oh no before she died, and then lets go of his face, and the pain's just so much in Top Dollar's head. He's like, no, and it like this, like Die Hard.
The wind's against us.
He's turned the wind against us. Ah. He falls really far from the top of the roof, straight into a statue of a gargoyle with big ass horns. Like Shang Tsung in Mortal Kombat, straight through him, and it's just that's it. Indeed.
I'll tell you what. I tell you what, though, man. You give me any film that ends with a sword fight on the roof of a church, I'm watching it.
Exactly. So we see that Top Dollar's now dead, and Sarah. It's like here's all that dialogue while Sarah's just hanging there. You'd have thought.
It's been a while, eh?
You'd have thought that he'd be like, wait a minute, there's a wee lassie hanging for a roof. That it's like, no, here, have some of this pain. Do you know what I mean? Have some of this pain. I'm not going to trip you up to like kill you quite quick. Take the pain first while wee Sarah's hanging from the roof. He saves Sarah, takes her back down. You know, he's found Ernie at the bottom of the stairs. They have a wee smoke. He's like, oh, I'm giving up in the whole total Lethal Weapon kind of style. You know, I'm giving these up. Eric kind of laughs. They all have a wee bit of laugh. Eric's gone. He disappears. And like, are you going to do that disappearing thing? Oh, he always does that. The whole Batman style thing. And then at that point, you didn't really see what happens to everyone else. Ernie kind of gets taken out in a stretcher, and just when you think he's going to punch that arsehole of a boss that he's got, he doesn't. He's just like, you missed it. Right?
Yeah.
Sarah, obviously, I think, has got a new kind of relationship beginning with her mother, who's going to try and be a mum now.
Yeah.
And then Eric goes back to the graveyard where he sees which I believe to be a ghost of Shelley. She comes, takes his hand, and then it can't rain all the time. It ends, and just as the movie fades to black, it says, "For Brandon and Eliza."
Yeah. See, to be honest, I wasn't that keen on the ending. I don't know if the ending was kind of faithful to the graphic novel. Obviously, you'll find out once you get it. I don't know, but for me, I'd rather the ending was a bit less cheesy. You know, I mean, I think it was supposed to kind of end on a high with him seeing her ghost, and essentially ended like Ghost. So I don't know. I found that a bit cheesy. I think it would have been better if he could just kind of climb back into the grave and
like in Hocus Pocus, like Willie at Hocus Pocus.
I don't know.
See ya.
I've never made it through Hocus Pocus. So
what is wrong with
if he was to just kind of crawl back into his grave, still in pain, like blood trailing off him, and then it shows you him lying in the coffin, and then he just, like, because his mission is done, he should heal up to the point he was before he came back for the dead. So all his new injuries should go, but he'll keep the bullet holes in that, and then he just closes his eyes, and that's him at peace. I think bringing Shelley back at the end was silly.
No, I disagree with you here, J-Mac, because obviously what happens is he goes to the grave, and he kind of she takes his hand, and then it just clips, and both graves, there's no mud missing from his grave now. It's like it magically all just goes back. Now you're saying that you would have liked him to just kind of reanimate to something, and then just kind of. I quite like the idea of him just walking away with Shelley, leaving it open. You know, just walking away with Shelley.
Leave it open for a few terrible fucking sequels.
Not so much that, but like it's also quite symbolic. It would be Brandon Lee walking away, you know, leaving the movie, just symbolic. And I think I think when the movie finishes, you don't need any more. It's a story it's been told, and it's been told very, very well. And kudos to Brandon Lee for everything he put into that. You know, when he was filming this and the makeup people applied his makeup, he said that, nah, I don't like it. It looks too new. So what he done was applied it himself and then went to bed that night and would wake up and it looked tarnished. Right. Yep. Which was a fine, you know, these fine things.
I like to imagine that he got up in the morning and forgot he'd done it and like switched on his bathroom light. He was like, oh, fuck. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it's it was it's one of those things that every time you watch the movie, you can't help but think, wow, what could have been?
Just let the yawn out, man. It's coming.
No. You think what could have been had he not died? What kind of stuff would he have done years later? But one thing I am glad is that they released this movie after he did die, because for the world not to see that and not to have had that after he put such a body of work into it would have been a real crying shame.
Yeah. I mean, we have got a good movie out of it, and I suppose that's one good thing you could take away from what happened. It'd be bad if a film came out and it was crap, like what happened with Jamie Deaf.
For the question section, we always do this in the deep dive. J Mac, what do you give The Crow out of 5?
4.5.
I give it 5, purely on every aspect of it. Obviously, we let certain things go because that's what you should do. Movies are not supposed to be spot on. They're trying to tell a story in a small window. So for nostalgia, for what the movie meant to me, for what it means to pop culture, for what it is essentially, and how much Brandon put into it, and obviously what he lost putting into it. Yeah. 5 out of 5, mate. You can't take away from.
For me, that half star is just because of the ending. I still didn't like the ending. That's it.
Let it go. Most memorable scene.
The montage when putting the makeup on. I love that scene. I love the music. Yeah. That's when Burned by the Cure kicks in. And I think the music just illustrates so well what that scene is and should be. And everybody loves the bit where the superhero first gets suited up. And I love that bit. What was yours?
For me, it was the part where he's walking, and the bird lands on his shoulder, and you get that iconic scene. And another one is where you can see him from the loft, and the camera pans away throughout the city. You can just kind of see him standing in the loft. That's kind of what I think about when I see the movie. But every scene has its purpose for me. If I could choose all of them, I would choose all of them. But these are the kind of standout visuals for me.
Yeah.
And your most memorable quote?
Quick impression for you. Caw, bang, fuck, I'm dead. It made me chuckle. I was after the crow got shot, and that was top dollar coming and taking the piss. I found that pretty funny. Like memorable quote. There's a lot of memorable quotes, but I like funny quotes, especially funny quotes in films that really aren't funny unless coffee gets spilled on somebody.
God damn!
What the crap?
Mine.
What's funny? Sorry, I meant to say actually when Skank falls on the police car, the same cop kits out and goes, "What the crap?"
Every time. My most memorable quote is, "It can't rain all the time," because anytime I hear it, it takes me straight back to the movie. Even though his band, which are a bit weird, right? His Hangman's Joke is his band, right? It's the name of his band. And have you heard when she puts a song on? It's pish.
It can't rain all the time. I actually think the record got stuck at that point, and that's what made Sarah turn round. Because if you listen, that's what's happening there. It's not that the song's that bad; it's the record gets stuck on that line, so that she really puts 2 and 2 together. That's what it is.
Oh well, I thought maybe they could just had a chorus that they could have just had a chorus that was like, "It can't rain all the time. It can't rain all the time." Like, do you know what I mean? You wouldn't have to stick a.
Sometimes the sun comes out. Can't rain all the time.
Yeah, so for me, It Can't Rain All the Time is class because it's basically what's said throughout the whole movie, and it's what makes me think of The Crow. So this has been The Crow, a Jibber Jabber deep dive. I've absolutely enjoyed it. I spent hours and hours prepping for it, and it's been an absolute labor of love. I hope everyone at home has enjoyed it. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, Google iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere you're listening, remember we do this show live, and we do it visually as well over on YouTube, Twitch. We do it on Facebook Live as well. You can still go back and watch this in the archives. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight on our almost 2-hour episode of The Crow. This has been one that's been a long time coming for us, and I've really enjoyed it. J-Mac, did you enjoy it?
I did. What's funny is we've actually talked for longer than the film goes on.
That's true. But I mean, we could have made it even longer if need be, but nah, we're not going to. If you guys want to give us a review on this episode or any other episode, please do so on iTunes, on Spotify, wherever you can leave reviews. That stuff really would help us chart, which means a lot more people would come in and we'd get paid a lot more money, and then we'd get better production value. You guys would have a great time because we'd have a great time.
Exactly. That's it. I mean, if we can get some good 5-star reviews, it gets us more noticed. You know, we get recommended as a listen for somebody that's never seen us before. So please start leaving 5-star reviews. That'd be lovely. Even
if we're doing a 2-star episode, just give us 5, all right? But as always, I have been Kevin Wells, and this is J-Mac. We are the Jibber Jabber podcast, and thanks again for joining us tonight for the Crow Deep Dive. And we will see you next week, and maybe we might just throw out a little bonus episode if we're feeling frisky. Isn't that right, J-Mac?
Yeah, I'm always feeling frisky.
And on that note, thanks again. We'll see you guys next week.
Tatty bye.